Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
I got my bags packed and on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo.
Amateur Traveler, episode 433. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about nightlife and gorillas and a slow boat up the Congo River as we go to the Democratic Republic of Congo.
I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not today.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Back from a week off, this episode of the Amateur Traveler is again sponsored by bloggerbridge.com. If you're looking to connect with content creators, then check out bloggerbridge.com. It will help you find people near you, it will help you find people in particular niches, and it'll help you keep track of work they're doing for you. bloggerbridge.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Chris and Sasha Rosencranz from Voyage Brands, and they've come to talk to us about the DRC. Chris and Sasha, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
And Chris, it's your second time on the show, and last time we talked about the other Congo. So when I say the DRC, we mean what?
We're talking about the former Belgian Congo, or the Democratic Republic of Congo. So on the south side of the river and the larger of the nations.
Excellent. And this is obviously the more democratic of the two from the name, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're also remarkably democratic. It's just hard to, commend them all.
I kid. We actually, last time we talked about the Republic of Congo, we said the DRC was a little less, let's say, stable than the Republic of Congo. Is that still the case?
Honestly, I never felt really threatened while I was there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think people were even friendlier than people in the Republic of Congo, and people really did smile. And actually, all the news about Congo, about the DRC, they are never really positive. They talk only about the conflicts and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, about the minerals, and everyone is fighting. But it's all about the eastern side. Western side was quite fine, so I don't know. I was afraid. It was my first time, and I was afraid of going there, but I felt fine, and we never really encountered any problems with people trying to
Even hassle us. I mean,
yeah.
even like on the other side of the river, there's a lot of just people wheeling and dealing and just trying to rip you off as like as almost like what happened to you anywhere. But
And you say the other side of the river, the Congo River divides north and south. North of it is the Republic of Congo, which we talked about in episode 385, and the south would be the DRC.
yeah, Kinshasa and Brazzaville are the two closest capitals to each other in the world. I mean, in terms of stability, for a little bit of context, John Kerry was just visiting Kinshasa, and there was sort of a definitive defeat of some of the rebels in the east. I don't know how definitive that actually was, but they're a long way from the capital, and it doesn't really feel unstable in any way that would affect any tourist in the capital that we know of. I mean, you'll certainly hear stories. If you ask the embassy there, they'll tell you all sorts of reasons to be careful, but we found it to be quite the friendlier and I would say the easier of the two capitals. There's certainly more to do.
Okay. And why should someone go to the Democratic Republic of Congo?
Well, they have a lot of nice national parks, and there is not that many tourists. There is a lot of wildlife. If you don't wish to go into the interior of the country, like there is a very famous bonobo sanctuary close by to Kinshasa, very close to Kinshasa.
And I'm sorry, I missed what you said. There's what kind of sanctuary?
Bonobo.
Bonobo.
Bonobo?
I don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Well, these are the monkeys, and they are the closest relatives to the human by DNA. Well, we call them the hippies of the monkey world because they're absolutely non-aggressive and they're very friendly. And all the conflicts, like even if they have any conflict, they solve by having an intercourse. I don't know if it's like...
There's a special group of primates called the bonobos, and they're only found in DRC. And the reason they say is because they can't swim. And so they evolved on the east and slash south side of the Congo River, and they could never get out of the DRC. Because to go to any other countries out of the equatorial rainforest, they'd have to cross the river. So they that's why they only live there. And they're the most identical to humans in DNA. So there's a very, very famous sanctuary there, and there's quite a few tourists apparently who go just to visit the sanctuary. And they discovered new groups further up the river in different branches and different kind of tributaries. But yeah, and so they look quite human. It's a remarkable experience, and it's barely like an hour outside the city and very easy to visit in a really natural, wild setting.
You need to have a 4x4 because the road is pretty bad. It's unpaved, and if it rained before, it's like very slushy and you can get stuck. So,
yeah, in a relative way, Botswana has more paved roads in it than all of the DRC, despite the comparative size of the two countries.
Interesting. And how would you approach the DRC? Where would you stay, and what kind of itinerary would you recommend?
Well, I would say inevitably you're going to come into Kinshasa, which there's a whole lot of international carriers going in there nowadays. We found probably the cheaper of them all would usually be Turkish Airlines. They have extended routes all over Africa. It's really, really impressive, the size of their network. And from there, it's quite a chaotic airport. I mean, we probably tell you, would you say one of the most chaotic airports we've ever seen?
Yeah, I would say so.
I wouldn't say there's any like personal security issues there. It's really, really funny because it's just kind of a free for all, and there's a million people like doing a million different processes. But
you talk about it being chaotic. Now I recall flying through Nairobi, and what chaos looked like there was we had to somehow pick up our luggage from one airline and take it and find the place that we needed to take it and get it into the other airline so it'd make our plane. And there were people who made a living basically just handling the chaos of the airport. Are we talking about that kind of chaos, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, then maybe in a similar like I think checking in to leave is a little bit more of a hassle because there's all sorts of mysterious taxes and fees to be paid, and then while you stand in line, like you have to hand off your bags to to 5 different groups of people in front of you just before you get to the check-in, and you're never ever allowed to talk to the airline until you actually get on the plane. Like you have to deal with the airport authority like exclusively till you even reach the tarmac, and so it can be a little bit intimidating. Yeah.
If you leave the country, before you get to the airport, be prepared to pay some money to even enter the airport. And it's actually legal. It's just the city or the airport,
it's an exit visa.
They impose some sort of taxes, which are different every year. So the amount is usually different. Like last time we paid about $60 per person, just to be able to enter the airport.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it's
well,
all
I've seen that
legal.
even
Yeah.
Australia has fees to leave the country, which caught us by surprise before. So that's
wow.
not as unusual as
Yeah,
I would
Manila.
like.
Yeah, you'll head in. It's about an hour into the city. I think the place to stay is certainly it's called 30 June or 30th June Street, and it's kind of the Champs Elysees of Kinshasa. There's all sorts of stuff going on there. You can take a bus either way, like a public one, or you can get like your taxi, and those cost respectively either what was it 50 cents or $5, right?
It depends.
Yeah, it's a huge city, but a general ride within maybe a few miles would cost you 50 cents in a really cramped bus, and then taxis like where you get the whole thing to yourself and it's tinted windows usually is about $5. I think our choice of hotel was just anybody is called Leon Hotel, like Lion. They're right under the Ministry of Economics and Finance, which is like it's kind of the most central location in the city, and then the largest building, which you can see from Brazzaville, is this big brown former buildings of Gecko Mines, like the state mining company, is right over 30th June Street. And also, what we think is the best bar and kind of restaurant in town, kind of a Brazilian barbecue place called Tucanos. Like a toucan is there as well. And I just think there's some phenomenal nightlife, and it's also really pretty cheap to eat, and feels pretty fine to walk even at night. So.
And you hinted at the fact that the names were in French. I'm assuming that's the Belgian influence. Is that the predominant language you were interacting in, or what is the language situation in the DRC?
Well, they have their local languages, but mostly like Lingala and Kikongo. Well, I don't speak much of these languages. I just know Mbote, which means hello, something like that. In between them, they speak French mostly. And we sometimes met people who could speak English. I think it's because of the past friendship of DRC and like the United States or something like that.
They've always kind of looked up to America, which is surprising to learn. The US dollar is in use everywhere in the DR Congo. So you can use dollars to pay for everything, even in villages. And furthermore, there was a NATO base in the strip facing the ocean. And so apparently anyone of any political note in the Republic of Congo, the French part, speaks some Russian too, because it was like a Moscow like Cold War stronghold. And Angola, where UNITA was also in the camp of the Soviet Union. Unfortunately, we also ended up propping up some people like Mobutu and some not so commendable behavior. But this was a Cold War front, and NATO and the U.S. heavily supported the DR Congo, and even some of the a little bit prior to that, some of the uranium for the Hiroshima bombs. Like most of the uranium mined for the atomic bombs that used against Japan also came from DR Congo. So there's all really, really old ties between America and there to this day.
And you mentioned the Strip. So as I recall the map, we're talking about a country that's almost entirely landlocked with a little strip of coastline, and that's what you were referring to as the Strip.
Yeah, there's probably a word for that. It's straddling. It's like a little finger out to the ocean, and has Angola to the south, which is a very, very hard border to cross, and so you can't really go over land that way. There's other places to go, but that region stretching out is called Bas Congo, like BAS Congo or Bas Congo. If you take a bus or you take a 4x4 from Kinshasa to the west, you'll go by these huge waterfalls called Zongo Falls, which are really spectacular, and they can make a good weekend trip from Kinshasa. There's a lodge there called Steli Lodge. You get a bit better rates with all these things if you use a tour operator in advance. Bas Congo, they have a lot of colonial Belgian history and some more modern history. Like there was a train line built to straddle the cataracts on the river, because as the river flows between the ocean and Matadi, which is the ocean port of the DRC, it's navigable. But then it turns into really, really, really ferocious waterfalls and cataracts, and it's completely impossible for a ship to pass.
Okay.
These are really mean waterfalls. If your readers look up Livingston Falls, named after Stanley Livingston, and you take a peek, I mean, they look more like Victoria Falls. They're really, really, really big. And there's all sorts of these things all the way between Kinshasa and Matadi, so it's impassable. So what the Belgians tried to do was build a railway around it, it still exists to this day. I mean, everyone, of course, to transport between the two cities, they take the bus or 4x4 nowadays, and you can get to Matadi and you can see the Baobab of Stanley, who apparently he was not a very nice guy, despite all his fame. I mean, he's one of the worst Europeans, they say, ever visited the Congo, according to Congolese history. However, there's a lot of monuments named after him all over the place, and Kinshasa itself was just a rubber trading post, which now grew into a city of something like 18 million in the surrounding area. So it's like a mega city, in tune like almost most of it's a slum, but like there's certainly a core with a downtown and some really big skyscrapers and a lot of international people there nowadays.
Okay. Now, I interrupted you when you were talking about what else to do in the capital, so let's get back to that.
Well, there are some museums that you can visit. There's a National Museum where there is an exposition of animals that you can find in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There are some cultural artifacts and some historical. I think you should say that.
It's also on the site of Mobutu's palace, overlooking the two capitals. So it's a spectacular location that, after he was deposed, they made it into a museum. And there's the Avenue, what's he called? Avenue de Touriste. Tourist Avenue, which is kind of like the Pacific Coast Highway of Kinshasa, which goes along the river, and it's a really, really beautiful place to view the river there too.
You can also see the cataracts, the rapids on the River
Really
Congo,
cool.
and you can actually have a nice dinner or lunch there. And it's like we've seen a lot of expats having lunch or snack or dinner there, and just it's a beautiful view, and you can see the other side. You can see the Republic of Congo. You can see the Brazzaville and its buildings, and it's just a really nice place to be there. And some people swim there. We would not recommend doing that because it's kind of dangerous, and because the Congo River is a very powerful and strong river. So
The strongest in the world.
yeah, so you should be careful. You might just be.
It's the strongest,
Blown
deepest,
away.
fastest river in the world, and particularly there, exactly that part. So there's a beach to boat near that place where Diego Tchau, he's a Portuguese navigator who he and his crew, they portaged the boat around the cataracts and they got back in the river to try to navigate further upstream, because between Kinshasa and Kisangani, which is about 1 month away by river, it's nothing but like perfectly navigable river with collectively tens of thousands of kilometers of navigable tributaries. It's like a built-in distribution network.
And let me make sure that I got you correct there with the units. 1 month away.
1 month. Yeah, you can make it in a fast boat by 1 week, but as the public ferry goes, which I took about 5 years ago, which I would certainly never do again, it takes about 3 weeks to a month to get between Kisangani, which is the last navigable river city on the Congo River to the east before you start getting near Rwanda, Uganda, etc., and Kinshasa, which is the capital. And so the river bends, but there's lots of other smaller tributaries which lead to villages and sometimes just a bush. Like, so between Kinshasa and Kisangani, this is all extremely navigable, one of the most navigable rivers in the world. So it was perfect distribution network, which is why the Europeans, I suppose, were also in love with it at the time. There's actually quite a lot of other stuff to do in and outside of Kinshasa. You can take a river cruise. You can ask around town or use a tour operator, and they can take you either for a day or a weekend. And there's several places to stay. There's a place called Safari Beach, Kinshasa, with bungalows, and like you can have barbecues and you can even swim in the river and such. You can see fishermen, local life, lots of like boat traffic. There's a place called Bombo Lumene, which used to be full of game and lots of large mammals, but the person in charge of conservation, he sold off the rights to hunt them, and now they're all gone, unfortunately. So it's the first and closest national park to the capital is now, there's nothing there except some huge fish with teeth in the river. So it's, but people still like
So we
going.
won't be swimming there either.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Now, you have been to this portion of Africa. Now, this is your third trip, at least?
It depends on what you define as Western Africa. I think I've been to the Congo about 5 times now. The longest I spent there was about 5 years ago when I was just a backpacker. This time we spent about a spring there, so about 2 months.
What surprised you this time? You've been to the area. You think you know it.
I would say that it's on a path to improvement and modernity, and there's lights and like bling and buzz going up everywhere. And we'd heard that it was getting worse, and it was dreary. And we met some really cool South African helicopter pilots who said like they've flown all over Africa, all over the world. Kinshasa was more scary to them than Afghanistan and such. And we were really creeped out. And then we got there, and it was, man, we really liked it and stuff. At least I really liked it. I mean, you can go to malls, you can go to all sorts of great nightlife and cafes. You can walk around at night and feel a lot more secure than you could have used to. And it seems like they've moved up where there's more options available in different consumer goods and items and even educational opportunities for people. the Chinese are building roads all over the place, and so linking up major arteries, and more of the interior is going to be linked within the next few decades and such. I felt it was actually a bit more stable and safe, and it's on a good path.
It reminds me of experiences I've had of going to either third world countries or less developed portions of countries, and the first time there being surprised by the poverty, and then second time there getting used to that, and then starting to notice this guy's got a new shop and this guy's adding on to his house. Are you seeing it getting better because you have eyes to see it because you've been there enough times? Or what would my response be, I guess, is part of my question.
I think you would actually find it a bit further along than even some of the other cities in Africa, which get more visitors or get more press. You'd find Kinshasa a little further along than them even. If you head to Cameroon, or a lot of people go to Lagos or Nairobi, etc.
Had a friend who was just in Lagos.
Yeah, hopefully didn't pick up Ebola while I was there.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, like Kinshasa, it almost looks like, at night, it almost looks like an Asian capital in some places, just lots of lights flashing everywhere, impressive, huge new skyscrapers, and there's a lot of investment in the hotel sector, a lot of options there. And it seems like there is enough stability for people to build long-term businesses. Yeah, it's not like there's cut-and-run shacks and like wheeler dealers seem to be in the east of Congo. There used to be, and I've seen before, kind of temporary cities where people don't really plan to stay there for at least more than a year or so.
Of course, that's also where there was, as you said, more conflict.
Yeah, exactly. So why would you invest so much other than to make a relatively quick buck? So Kinshasa seems to provide a little bit better umbrella, maybe because of its removed from distance, or maybe just because the whole country is getting a bit better. But with such a diffuse large place, it's hard for me to variably say. I'm not an expert or work for the State Department or anything, so I'm sure they'd have a better idea.
The question we usually ask, when did you feel closest to home, most familiar, most Western maybe, and when did you feel furthest from home? This is not Kansas.
It's going to be the food, actually, because there was a fast food place close by to our hotel.
Getting buffalo wings every day.
Yes, and this is the closest I felt to the Western world in general. Because the food was familiar, and there was sandwiches and pizzas and nice breads, actually, really nice breads. And yes, for me, that was the closest I felt.
Okay, and then the opposite, the furthest, most unfamiliar.
Every time I walk out of the hotel, I felt like I wasn't anywhere close to Europe or Russia or United States, because I was different. I was white, and I stood out.
Oh,
and
yeah, you gotta stand out.
I felt like I wanted to get some tan or something, just not to look so white.
Well, I've told the story on this show before, but when we were in Tanzania, that one of the members of our party was separate from us, and he was able to find us just because people would see him and point to where the other white people went. You're with those people. So I completely relate to that.
It was this way. Yeah, it's pretty funny. They actually seem pretty used to seeing foreigners. I mean, there's lots of Chinese and Lebanese and French there. And any given time when we were walking on the street in most of the areas where downtown, you'd see other foreigners. The time I felt kind of unnerved and farthest from home, there's a huge market near the river launch where you would buy tickets to go down to Kisangani, etc. and stuff. And I remember turning up there and other places like that years ago. But it's just this these hordes and masses of humanity is walking, and it's not a mess, but everyone doesn't mean you any harm and stuff. They're saying hi and such, and it's pretty cool. But it's you think there's millions of people living off this river and thriving here and such, and you feel really, really small in that place because it's the central focus point for the river dock of Kinshasa.
This last time you spent 2 months there. Yeah. What's your best tip for fitting in? Obviously, you can't work on the tans, so what's your best tip for getting around?
Have some help before you go. Do some research, reach out to some third-party services or some other expats there.
So how would we do that? Where are you doing your research, or what did you research before you went?
Well, there is I sometimes use couch surfing, for example.
Sure.
Because there are some expats who
cool ones,
are active. It's not as big as, for example, in America or Europe or maybe China, but you can ask them questions and they will try to help you.
So the tip there is that couch surfing is not just a place to go when you want to sleep on someone's couch, but just a way to connect to locals also.
Yes. And also I think the Lonely Planet's Thorn Tree Forum helps. because people are very active there, and a few times I helped, like I answered some questions myself. Well, it depends on the question because sometimes they're really specific and not everyone knows, but it's worth a shot, honestly.
Okay, excellent.
There's sections updated like GoCongo.com and CTT CongoTravelandTours.com who work together. They kind of answer everything, even if they're not selling you a tour, and they seem to be pretty knowledgeable even about the river and the city.
So, like, what kind of things did you pick up from your research that other people should be aware of before they go?
I would think that the selection of hotels and the fact that you don't really have to pay for a hotel before you get there.
Okay.
It would probably behoove of you to arrange immigration assistance at the airport before you got there, because they can actually provide something like where the immigration knows you're coming, and so they kind of smooth your way through. And so you don't only have someone picking you up with a sign, but they're actually waiting for you inside immigration, and everything kind of just cruises on through.
For a reasonable fee?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it's certainly under $150 or so, and the airport transfer is going to cost you $70 to $100 anyway, and so it's not like you're going to get away with much better. Also, I think that you should just relax a bit and plan to get your legs the first 2 days. I think a lot of your conceptions will drop, and you'll find it if you're there, happen to be there to explore. You'll find all the information you need rather quickly, especially with the help of hotels and tour operators. But if you're there to do business, it's actually a lot easier than other places in Africa, and people they have a little bit better long-term thinking than we were expecting after some of the other African countries, and like they seem motivated and they seem honest. They seem like to be kind of positive about the future of their country. Something you should not miss is if you head to the Fleuve Congo Hotel, this brand new Chinese-built thing. It's a big monster managed by Kempinski Luxury Hotels, and you can see it from anywhere in either of the cities, especially at night. You can go there for a drink. There's no rooftop bar, but if you quote unquote accidentally head to the 21st floor and get off at the view lounge and lose your way, you have like a spectacular view, and the staff certainly don't mind, and you can chat to them for a while.
What do the guidebooks recommend that you didn't think was worth the time?
The mausoleum, right?
The mausoleum of the
Mao Zedong and Stalin. They have like it's like an embalmed or
Right.
wax figure of themselves. So Kabila, I think against his will, they did that to him as well. So there's a mausoleum for him there. There's some other colossal buildings making a statement and such, and they're not entirely interesting to see. There's some other historical sites that are better to see.
Like what?
There's a place called Gabadolite, and that's in the interior. It's a jungle palace Mobutu built, which has kind of since receded into the weeds. The jungle has reclaimed it. In the city, somebody built a traffic robot. Someone like at one of the science, and so like it was some university thesis. So a Congolese scientist, they built a robot that directs traffic in Kinshasa and such, and it actually works really well, and so it's become famous there. And I would certainly, there's so many different places to go out clubbing and see the nightlife, but one thing really remarkable about the capital is it's famous in Africa for its music, but you won't go there and find like house music and the same old stuff you'd find in the clubs around the world, in Europe to Asia to America. They really only like African music, and especially their own music, and so you'll probably dig it because it has like a lot of rhythm, and they've invented some really, really great artists and rhythm for time immemorial. So I think the music of Kinshasa and the Congo is amazing.
You were there for a couple months. Any memorable locals you met?
Yeah, we met two guys. There was a young guy. He'd done some time working in South Africa and around and bringing back money to his family and such. And so there was a young Congolese guy he wanted very much to work in working in an international company or something, just to be part of the wider world. It seems like people are really anxious to be part of constructing something instead of just taking something. It was just really great to see. And all of the managers of all the smallest shops to the biggest businesses and hotels, they would treat you like it was such a privilege to have you walk in to the place. And so I really appreciate that.
In your opinion, the best time of year to go or the best day of year to go, a particular festival or something?
It's the dry season, which is May to September.
Okay.
So you can do everything from you can go on safaris, you can go tiger fishing for the big fish, you can walk around without getting drenched. And even during the dry season, there's spectacular thunder and lightning storms at night. I'm not sure why. Maybe some...
So it's the drier season is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is also like the road conditions are very bad in the DRC, and it's better if you go in the dry season because you can just get stuck in the country, for example. If you are traveling with your own car or like if you are traveling just yourself, you can fly there as well. And they have extensive flight routes and pretty good airline companies, actually. It's just, yeah.
We should talk about Kisangani and Goma real quick,
Yeah.
which is almost a whole other country, but certainly worth a mention. Like the best time of year to do the Congo River, to traverse it, is definitely right now, like July, August.
Okay.
Kisangani, which is the other end of the line, unfortunately, there's no international flights that go there anymore. So you kind of have to start your journey in Kinshasa no matter what. Or you have to drive in or get a private air into the place. Otherwise, Kisangani is a last stop on the river. Not really remarkable in itself. It's just a big, ugly river town. But further afield of that, you run into a Turi where all the pygmies live. There are some national parks out that way, which aren't accessible because of the rebels at the moment. But Goma and Bukavu in the east, the governor of North Kivu has recently reopened near Nyiragongo volcano, which is like one of the most spectacular hikes you can do in Africa. It's like a live volcano you can see at night. And there's chock full of expats and foreigners living in Goma and Bukavu all the time and driving around. And it's relatively safe and stable and such. And you can go track gorillas. You can do some other activities from there. However, between Goma and Bukavu, where the Great Lakes are, which are very beautiful, and where the river is, there's a lot of land you have to traverse. And besides a very uncomfortable long bus ride, it's quite disconnected and divorced between those two regions and such. And so where the river ends, you kind of have to take to the land to get out to the other part of the Congo and eventually Uganda, Rwanda. It's a very vast country. For those coming from Zambia, it's really, really stable and safe in the southeast. There's a lot of copper mining and other sorts of mining down there. And Lubumbashi is the second biggest city, which I've just been to once. But there's not a whole lot of note. There's a Upemba National Park, where you can see some animals and some very large waterfalls. But at the moment, there's not much tourism going on, so it's difficult to access any of them without a tour operator. And some of them, there's just the animals have been overpoached, and so you have to travel for days and days and days before you see animals because humans have just overhunted them all, unfortunately. So that's in the southeast, near Katanga and Lubumbashi. So really, the star attractions of Congo, the thing that it has that nobody else has, are really the Congo River, which is a spectacular journey. Very uncomfortable if you do it the public ferry way. I'm glad I did that in my early 20s, but I would not recommend it to anybody. It's not comfortable, not really safe, not really air conditioned at all. Also, the Goma and the volcano out in the east is really a treasure, and everybody knows the Mountains of the Moon, the Ruwenzori out there. But that's all the same region. Where the gorillas, the mountain gorillas are, and the volcano. It's really, really special out there as well.
Before I get to my last 4 questions, anything else people should know before they go to the Democratic Republic of Congo?
I think you should just be really confident. I don't know, just smile because people do appreciate that. And also, I was trying not to take a lot of pictures there because, as far as I know, they don't like their pictures to be taken. So if you want to take a picture of someone, you should ask first. They don't like this sudden, and they get very, very angry. In Republic of Congo, they might just ask you for money or something, but in the DRC, they're really, really, they're superstitious, and they might get very angry about that. So just
good to know.
Be careful. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently some of the people in DRC, they think that taking a picture steals their soul, and they hate going in the river if they don't have to because they think that all the dead people from the wars reside in the river. And so they legitimately, some of them don't want to take like boats on the river and stuff or want to stay away because of that and stuff. But by and large, I think we've been a bit sobering through this whole podcast, but I'd say chill out. Like it's going to surprise you. And like there's a lot to offer. Yeah, it's not just because it's one of the least visited parts of Africa. There's a lot of opportunity and it's probably going to have a bright future in our lifetime.
Well, to get 2 less sobering questions, you're standing in the prettiest part of the DRC. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
Yeah, it's got to be Virunga. That's out in the east. Yeah, you can see a series of volcanoes, misty mountains, kind of I know, this is like out of Michael Crichton's Congo or something. Just great. It looks like you're very, very far from home. And there's spectacular lodges out there, too. I think the most pretty scenery is definitely the Goma region and the Congo River. and like either one is going to be one of the best experiences of your life if you actually make it out there.
Yeah, and also, like when we were there, the volcano was closed, but apparently you can spend the night near the crater, and it's lava. You can see it at night.
You can see the lava.
It's really great. I would love to go back there again. So
Excellent.
Well, furthermore, I mean, yeah, the governor of the province just opened it in this July, and so you can once again hike the volcano.
One thing that makes you laugh and say only in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
When the airport staff are going to go clean the airplane, the airlines they actually have a little metal detector, and they scan and they check the airport staff before they board the airplane to clean it, as if it's like another security checkpoint. So I've never seen that before either.
No, that's new.
Have you heard of sapeurs, Chris?
No.
So I'm not even sure what it translates to. It's a French word, but they're Congolese men who they spend almost all of the income they possibly can on a really, really crisp and fresh designer suit, like a top hat, sunglasses, great tie, and they walk with a swag. And like their hobby is just to dress up, look really sharp, and they like saunter down the street, and they kind of
I'm
hang
looking
out.
at pictures here, and okay.
Yeah, and so they kind of like they have gatherings sometimes, and sometimes there's clubs that they meet on, like to see some music and such. But I mean, there's people coming just to photograph the sapeurs and such, and we certainly never heard of them before we got there. But that's quite a phenomenon, and that's pretty cool. They can do a street walk like nothing I've ever seen.
Although, yes, the according to Wikipedia, they're placing that more in Brazzaville in Republic of Congo, but
Yeah, that's what I thought.
interesting.
I've seen some of them in DRC as well. In general, people like to dress up in this part of the country. So, for example, if you want to do business, you have to dress up. People really appreciate when you like take it seriously. So, yeah.
Last two questions. Finish this thought. You really know you're in the DRC when what?
When people call you, there is, for the white person, I think it's in Lingala, they call you Muindo. And so, for example, when you walk in some neighborhood in the streets and there's some little kid, they either called you Muindo, which means white, or they called you Chinois. Because there's so many Chinese, and
They think we look
Chinese. I see.
they really think that we are Chinese too, even though we were like white, and
Yeah.
they will call you Chinois sometimes too. So
If you had to summarize DRC in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
River,
Okay.
volcanoes,
Okay.
gorillas.
I believe you may be the first who chose 3 nouns, but thanks so much, Chris and Sasha, telling us your love for the DRC. Now, you've got a new project coming up, but you're not quite ready to announce it yet. Did you want to hint at it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure if there's such a thing as a beta test of a cruise, but we work with a bit of the cruise industry, and we're developing a voyage that you can learn Spanish, as so many people are after been wanting to do in their lives. So it's a cruise that goes from Miami and it visits the Panama Canal, Galapagos Islands, Colombia, Peru, Machu Picchu, Patagonia, Rio, Buenos Aires.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All these places and stuff in it. So it's about a month. Not only that, but you get to have fun and learn 100 flat hours of Spanish courses on it. So the idea is by the time you get off the ship, you're not only seeing all these places you always want to see, but you're able to use the language and have fun, and you know a bit of Spanish. And since we haven't really gotten up to speed totally, we're playing around with the idea of like offering a beta version of the cruise and letting people on for something like 5,000 or 6,000 for like a really, really cheap price for the whole month, and just so they can tell us how to improve it, and if they like it, so they get the Spanish and the cruise for a great price, and so we can like actually prepare for like the main launch of the program.
Excellent. And how should people get in touch with you if they're interested?
You can send an email over at chrisonaship. That's chrisonaship@gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for coming back on The Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for Africa, and particularly this time for the DRC.
Thanks, Chris.
thank you so much.
Catch you next time.
In news from the community, I heard from Cynthia, and Cynthia and I have had an interesting conversation because she originally wrote and talked about the episode we did on Paris, said the information about whether photography was allowed in the Musée d'Orsay was wrong. It turns out it must have changed since she's been there. It has certainly changed since I've been there, because I double-checked on the website, and they say no photography at all in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris.
I also heard from Sarah, who wrote and said, "Greetings from Toronto. I discovered your podcast earlier this year, and I'm really enjoying working my way through your archives. My list of must-visit countries is growing even longer thanks to you. My favorite episodes so far have been the Windward Islands. Barbados is one of the places I love most. Panama, Vietnam, and St. Helena. I really enjoyed the episode about your trip to Japan. I'll be traveling to Japan next month, and your podcast inspired me to add Kamakura to my itinerary. I'll let you know if I have any luck doubling my dollars after washing it at the Zeniarai Benton Shrine. Look forward to hearing more, Sarah." And Sarah, I absolutely recommend Kamakura. It's just a short day trip from Tokyo, and I'm sure that you will love it. The other interesting email I got last week was from the Thailand Foreign Ministry. It turns out, from now on, to get a position in the Foreign Ministry in Thailand, you'll have to take an English proficiency exam. And yes, the Amateur Traveler, 2 episodes of the Amateur Traveler in particular, will be part of that exam. You'll have to listen to them and then have a test on whether you comprehend them. They are not, strangely enough, an episode about Thailand or any place near Thailand, but one is about Yorkshire in England, and the other one is about narrowboating the canals of England and Wales. I don't know why they picked those episodes, but there you have it. With that, we're going to end this episode of The Amateur Traveler. We still have the space on the April 2015 trip to Morocco, so check that out at amateurtraveler.com. Go to Book Travel. If you have any questions, feel free to send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com or leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Chris2X. And as always, thanks so much for listening.
I got to see one more cathedral. I got to sit in one